In business today, three things to know. First, oil prices continue to gush away.
I drink your milkshake.
That's the oil movie There Will Be Blood. The pressure may now be on OPEC to prop up a global slide. Then, Dilma Rousseff wins re-election in Brazil by a whisker. The markets don't like it at all. What can she do to reunite a deeply divided country and a terrible economy? And Deflated, the government agency that demanded millions of airbags to be recalled, is itself on the hot seat as the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration failed car owners and their passengers. Arise Exchange starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Energy stocks led by oil companies hit the markets on Monday early. Though oil recovery, it did hit a midday two-year low. We're going to talk more about oil in a moment and its impact on the markets and the economy. But first, let's take a look at the final numbers for the day. The Dow Jones Industrial Average did close the day up 12 points after sliding most of it to 16,817. The S&P 500 back a fraction, and the NASDAQ up a mere 222 to 44.85. Some of the top stocks we're watching today, including some big earnings news. Twitter, the big story, reporting earnings per share this quarter of a penny. That was in line with analyst expectations, and revenue of $361 million was $10 million above estimates. The earnings story about Twitter is what investors are really looking at right now. How does the company make money? Twitter closed the regular session at 48.56, though it is down an additional 10% in after-hours trading. Restaurant chain Denny's announcing third quarter earnings per share of 10 cents. That did beat forecast by a penny. Revenue of $117 million also topped estimates. Denny closing at $7.72, back 8 cents. Merck reporting revenues below estimates. Its EPS, however, of 90 cents did beat estimates by a couple cents. Merck closing down $1.16. Allergan, the makers of Botox, reported third quarter earnings per share of 78 cents, of $1.78 rather. That's 2 cents above estimates. Valeant, meantime, has also upped its offer to buy Allergan by $200 a share. Allergan closing at $182.33 to $200 a share. Looking at commodities, gold down $3.30, and of course oil is the story that we're going to be talking about, down another 26 cents. Crude prices hit a two-year low in the middle of the day. Goldman Sachs downgraded oil further since OPEC does not appear prepared to defend the price. Low oil prices may sound good to you when filling the family car, but there are consequences. Jim Awad from Plimsoll Mark Capital is here with his take. And we're also going to talk to him about the Brazilian election, where Dilma Rousseff narrowly won re-election, seen as a leftist victory by workers, however, at the spare of investors. So that's not looking so good for them. Let's take a look first at oil, Jim. What are the key drivers here that we're seeing why oil is being pushed down?
Well, worldwide growth is not what it was supposed to be, so demand is less than expected, and yet production has not been cut back. And it was expected that Saudi Arabia would do so. But the Saudis, I think, want to punish the Russians who are supporting the Shiites in Syria. I think that the Saudis also want to support do damage to the Iranians who are Shiite in the Sunni Shiite struggle. And also, I think the Saudis are a little bit aggravated at the United States for ignoring the Middle East. And to the extent that they can make our domestic shale oil production uneconomic and make us less energy independent, the Saudis are well served in the short term by the decline in the price of oil.
They had said last week that they weren't going to defend the price right now. And they said, or analysts say, that's because they're concerned about competition from the U.S. But you're sort of giving it this global look that the easiest thing they can do from a political standpoint is nothing.
Well, right, exactly, and make U.S. shale production uneconomic so that we're dependent again on the Middle East. Now, they are about to come under a lot of pressure from other OPEC countries to sort of reverse that position. But to date, I think that's been the major cause for why they haven't acted and why the price has been sloppy.
Does this put the coalition and the cartel in trouble?
Well, it's been in trouble before, and it's really an unholy alliance held together only by economic interests.
Absolutely.
But I think it would.
None of these countries like each other.
Right, exactly. But ultimately it's in everybody's interest to shake the hand of your enemy and make a deal. So you'd have to bet that at some point, after inflicting enough pain, the Saudis will back off. But let's wait and see.
The strength of the dollar, though, must also play a role here because it's all petrodollars.
Yes, absolutely. And that's related. I'm giving you the direct supply and demand answer, but also to the extent that the dollar goes up, all commodities, including oil, go down.
So we look at this and we go to the gas station, as you know, and we're saying, wow, this is great because gas is a tax on the American consumer. They take that money and they spend it elsewhere. But what is the proper balance here? Because if the whole global economy is slowing down and there's a drop of oil, that could be problematic.
Well, also, yes, it's the decline in the price of gasoline is as you said, a tax rebate for the American consumer. But it's also a penalty for American energy companies, which do a lot for the economy. So most people seem to think you really don't want to see oil, when you put all that together, you really don't want to see oil go below $80 a barrel.
Okay, and it was briefly below 80 today.
Yeah.
It sort of popped back up, so there must have been some buyers coming in.
Yeah, and well, I think there'll be a struggle here at around 80 as the bulls try to defend it and the bears try to break it. But I think what you can say with some comfort is that oil below $80, the stock market goes down. Okay,
let me ask you about Brazil right now. Were you surprised first that she won re-election because she charges of corruption, charges of mismanagement, and an economy that's just a mess?
Well, the polls were very tight right up to the close, so it could have gone either way. What I was surprised at is ultimately she won by about 2 points, which is more than what was expected. So I'm not surprised necessarily that she won. It could have been either one by a little bit. Somewhat surprised she won by that much.
Yeah, the markets in Brazil certainly didn't like it. Does that have any direct impact on us here in the U.S.?
Well, only to the extent
it's Latin America's largest economy.
Yeah, no, but yeah, to the extent that Brazil doesn't do well, it's negative for the whole world because it is a large economy. And you want to see them add to worldwide prosperity rather than be a depressant on the world. So that's the sort of big picture. Directly, no. If they go into a recession, it won't affect us.
But we've seen Latin American countries all trek left, Venezuela being the most extreme cases, and the economies completely fall apart. So that's why I'm wondering why there didn't seem to be much of a pressure. Well, there was pressure, but why she won re-election?
Well, she won re-election because there were more workers voting than investors. I mean, it was very close. It was a war between the urban investor class and the rural worker class that has benefited tremendously from her subsidies and wealth redistribution. And it was a battle between who was going to win, the producers or the receivers. And the receivers won because there were more of them. And it's bad for the economy. It's bad for their currency. It's bad for their equity markets.
And I wonder if she's going to change any positions now because it was so close. And she is certainly talking a conciliatory.
Here's what to watch. The Ministry of Finance. She has indicated that she's going to appoint a centrist. That would do a lot to start to repair the damage. If she goes with a leftist, then the markets and the currency will continue to go down.
I'm going to throw a third topic at you right now, and it's our favorite one, the Fed. Talking this week, any change in policy?
Well, I think they really don't want to surprise the market, so I think they will not do anything other than expectation. There are a few people who think they will not wind down the QE. They'll give it another month or two. They're supposed to wind down now.
Oh, so they'll delay a little bit. But
I'm not sure that's such a great idea because that would mean that they're worried about the world economy.
We don't like to see them being worried. Right. Because that makes everybody else worried.
Right. I think you might get a very brief relief rally if they extended it, but then people would say, oh, boy, that means the Fed sees trouble. So the best thing is they do exactly what's expected, wind down QE, and basically say they're data dependent and willing to go either way in terms of when interest rates will go up. They either stay where they are or go up and do it middle of next year to the end of next year, remain very flexible, data dependent. That would give the markets comfort.
Jim Awad, a lot we threw at you today.
Always
a
pleasure.
Very good. Thank you so much for that. Now to Africa, where U.S. Treasury Secretary Jack Lew has begun a week-long tour. He starts in Egypt, where he's meeting with the country's finance minister. The purpose of the trip is to promote U.S. business in Africa. Laura Taylor-Kale is with the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, which is a U.S. government initiative. Laura, welcome to Arise Exchange.
Thank you very much.
So it's been about a year since President Obama began his Power Africa initiative, and I want to just get an update on that from you.
Correct. It's been about a year, and it's been very successful. We are very positive about the initiative and about the effect that Power Africa can have on the continent. This is really about private sector and business being a force for good in the energy sector and the energy arena. We understand that most poor Africans won't be able to get their power from major grids for the next 10 years. And so Power Africa really is about expanding access as well as increasing the amount of generation of megawatts in Africa. OPEC, the U.S. government's development bank, has pledged to provide about $1.5 billion of commitments in Africa over the 5-year period of Power Africa. We have been very successful so far in doing that, with in just the first year nearing over $400 million in commitments. Power Africa has been able to really coalesce the U.S. government and provided unprecedented alignment of tools and collaboration amongst all the U.S. government agencies, not just OPEC, also USAID, Treasury, State Department, and able to bring power to Africans.
Laura, what is the Treasury Secretary hoping to get out of this tour? The United States has a fair amount of catching up to do when compared to China.
Well, you know, Secretary Liu is advancing President Obama's agenda in Africa. President Obama is very forward-leaning on Africa. You know, we just came across came out of having a very successful U.S.-African Leaders Summit, and Secretary Liu's trip is just an extension of President Obama's commitment to Africa.
And so is he looking to is there any trade deals on the talks here? Is there any way of trying to get U.S. investment dollars in there to try to make some of these countries more friendly from a regulatory and from a legal standpoint as well?
Well, anytime you have a cabinet-level secretary of anyone's caliber like Secretary Liu going to the continent of Africa, visiting several countries, you're going to have a market interest from business and from investors and looking at that. So, you know, we expect and we hope to see that the private sector will look very favorably upon the Secretary's visit, that the Secretary will be able to have he's already planning to have very high-level meetings with government officials and also with private sector, and be able to bring to bear more U.S. government resources and commitments to the continent. And
there's also, of course, a big push for sort of renewable energies as part of the entire plan there. Can you talk briefly about what's going on in Kenya?
Sure. OPEC is very involved, actually, in renewable energy sector. And just recently, we've approved a loan for the largest wind power project in all of Africa on Lake Turkana in Kenya. And so renewable energy is a big part of the Power Africa story. It's a big part of the overall story of how to bring more energy and expand access for power for Africans.
Okay. Laura, thank you. We'll have you back on maybe when the Secretary comes back.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Coming up, have government safety regulators skidded off the road in their pursuit of car recalls? You're watching Arise Exchange.
There is a reason Africa is called the new frontier. What was once potential is now an opportunity ready to be seized. Once revered for our resources, today's wealth lies in our people. People who build the cities that shape the future. People who know an idea in one place means business in another. A generation for whom technology means there are no borders, no boundaries. We are the new lions in a brave new world, kings of the urban jungle. And there's a bank that puts the world in our pocket and the future in our hands. UBA, Africa's global bank.
Welcome back to Arise Exchange. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration once again under the gun, this time in its handling of the Takata airbag crisis. The Department of Transportation, which is the agency's boss, is investigating the agency's mostly hands-off approach, not only for the airbag recall, but of course for past recalls this year. Alan Taylor, automotive expert and CEO of Entertainment Radio Network, joins us on the phone. Alan, welcome back to Arise Exchange. It would seem that when it comes to the airbag situation, the agency really couldn't get its act together. First, it was 6 million airbags, then it was 9 million airbags. Then if you went to the website, the website failed. This is really kind of embarrassing.
A huge embarrassment. And sadly, when people are getting hurt, it makes it much more serious than just embarrassing.
So what do you think the DOT is going to find in sort of this review of the administration?
Well, I mean, right now they're still watching crash reports to be able to set the boundaries for the recalls. And remember, this goes all the way back to airbags made from 2001. I mean, millions and millions and millions of them. And this is really in areas of the country and around the world where there's high humidity. That seems to be the big problem.
Mm-hmm. And automakers were complaining that the recall caught them off guard, that they don't have the airbags to replace the faulty airbags right now.
Well, it's the same exact problem GM had with the ignition switch. I mean, nobody's just got millions of these things sitting around. Mm-hmm. So there has to be a certain ramp-up time. Now, I talked to GM the other day, and they said that they have already repaired more than 50% of the ignition switches, but the problem is people aren't coming in to get them fixed.
Right, and some people, I've been seeing reports that some people are stopped driving their cars over the airbag situation, that they're more worried about the airbags. When you look at how the agency handled the ignition switch problem with GM, do you think that this is an agency that basically is now on the defensive and simply is overreacting, or is their approach on the airbags correct, but the way they're going about it may be wrong?
Well, I think they're in kind of corporate meltdown because whenever any of these types of things happen, everybody starts trying to play the blame game. And I watched an interview with a previous person from the NHTSA, and they were almost laughing at this kind of a thing. When this happens, everybody wants to blame everybody else. The sad part about it is, though, people are being hurt, people have been killed, and it boils down to what's happening here. Let's just talk about what's happening. A metal canister that surrounds the airbag actually blows up and sends fragments into the passenger compartment.
That's right.
It's because in the humid parts of the country, it creates a different reaction to the chemicals that blow the airbag, and it makes them more powerful than normal. So what happens is normally just the airbag blows, but now the airbag and the canister is blowing up also. So you've really got, kind of
shrapnel is hitting people, right? And
exactly.
they're sometimes going off when they're not supposed to.
Right, exactly. So it's a bit of a dangerous situation, and I'm not sure exactly how they're going to deal with it because this goes back to cars all the way to 2001. So you've got a huge number, and the problem is how many times have those cars been bought and sold, and people don't even have them registered in their names or at the same place.
How do you even find it? Critics say that NHTSA has become too cozy with the companies that it regulates, which is a common criticism of regulators. Do you think that's fair?
I do think that's fair. They say there's a bit of a safety culture, and now they're having to do a big review of what's going on. Well, the problem is, once again, it's just a bunch of people pointing the finger.
Yeah. All right, Alan Taylor, automotive expert and the CEO of Entertainment Radio Network. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Time now for our business ticker, stories making headlines across the nation and the world. The results are in. 25 banks have failed the European Union's toughest ever stress test. The financial health check by the ECB revealed a capital shortfall of more than $31 billion for 25 out of 150 of the continent's leading banks. The UK, by the way, was not included in this. The banks that have failed now have 9 months to get their act together or face liquidation. A bottleneck at Los Angeles ports could cause problems for the holiday shopping season in the worst shipping crisis in a decade. Container ships loaded with products destined for stores are sitting idle just off the coast, waiting for cargo on the docks to clear the backup. Possibly due to labor disputes and equipment issues, this is threatening timely delivery to retailers such as Walmart, which have started to reroute their goods from the nation's busiest port complex to other locations. Looks like a mobile wallet war is brewing. Just 1 week after Apple Pay was introduced, it has run into a roadblock. Over the weekend, CVS and Rite Aid, as part of a group of retailers developing a competing system, blocked the mobile payment app from its drugstores nationwide. Unlike Apple Pay, the rival payment system called Current C cuts out credit card networks, saving merchants swipe fees. Toyota is tops again in auto sales. The Japanese automaker kept its lead over Volkswagen and General Motors, reported record sales of over 7.5 million cars and trucks in the first 9 months of the year. That's up nearly 3% from the previous year. Volkswagen came in second, barely edging out GM with sales of 7.4 million vehicles. And it takes a lot more than money to buy the latest Ferrari. Ferrari will never top that list. The Italian luxury automaker is building a limited and exclusive series of just 6 Ferrari Sergio supercars, with each model expected to sell for millions. But they are only available by invitation, and even if you wanted to be one of the lucky 6, you're too late. Ferrari has already pre-sold all the Sergio cars to long-standing clients who were the only ones who got the invites in the first place. Coming up, what happens when you send a text message asking for drugs to your probation officer? Our favorite person of the day is next.
If I was building my own news network, first thing I think I'd want high-quality reporters, very educated, intelligent people.
Hello, I'm Francesca Maxime.
I'm Julian Phillips.
I'm Wendy Gillette.
I'm Sophia Songhai.
I'm Gary Anthony Ramsey. Thank you for joining us here in New York City.
I would like to see more people of color represented in high positions in media.
We've got world-class journalists, veteran journalists who have been in this industry for decades, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes as well.
People need to understand the problems that are going on in the community are much closer than we actually think they are.
Kayla Phillips is one of the shoppers who is suing Barney's, and she is here with her attorney. What is it that you want from them?
Not to judge every African-American person that comes in your store.
Global. It's Monday, so it must be time for a new round of sanctions against Russia. Nigeria is open for business, and you are getting a handle on this situation. Compelling. Time for liquid lunch, things that make us want to drink. Could she have been separated at birth from, say, Grimace? All business.
Money's coming out of these countries, and that flow is part of what's driving the equity markets.
Entertaining money daily.
It's about reimagining.
Arise Exchange. Time now for our favorite person of the day, when we pick one person who grabbed our attention, and not for the right reasons. We've all made the embarrassing mistake of texting the wrong person some information meant for someone else. But few of us have probably made this mistake. A Georgia man, Alvin Cross, is going back to jail after accidentally texting his probation officer asking for marijuana. Cross meant to text his drug dealer, of course. The question, you have some weed? When the probation officer got the text, he called police, who raided Cross's home and then found a bag of cocaine. Cross has been on probation for drug dealing in the first place, and now he's going back to jail for a year. Apparently, this is not an uncommon error among dopey drug dealers. Last year, a New Jersey man sent a text about a drug deal to a police detective, and a California woman sent a text message to a narcotics detective asking for drugs. And of course, there was the mother and son team who accidentally butt dialed 911 while they were making meth. And so Alvin Cross joins our list of our favorite people of the day. Coming up, music plagiarism from Led Zeppelin to Coldplay. Some of the biggest acts are accused of ripping someone else off. You're watching Arise Exchange.
The great thing about Arise Entertainment 360 is that we cover the 360 of entertainment, food, fashion, lifestyle, culture. We're able to cover it all. And the thing I love most about the show is we're able to do a stunning combination of high and low. So we can talk about Rihanna on the red carpet, but we can also speak about high art with people like Sanford Biggers and Hank Willis. We actually spend quality time with our guests, and we really get to know them. It's really intriguing because we get a 360 look at our guests.
Last week on Arise Exchange, the nauseating numbers from two iconic brands and whether they have a plan to turn around their businesses. Existing home sales surged to their best numbers. Can the broader markets support that in the real estate business?
When long-term interest rates are low, it's usually a bad sign for the macro economy.
Toys R Us is defending its decision to sell Breaking Bad action figures. The toys come with a detachable sack of cash and a bag of meth. Not real meth, fake meth. Watch this week for more Arise Exchange.
Yes, there are two miles you can go by, but in the long run, there is still time to change the road you're on.
Led Zeppelin has lost the first phase of a suit alleging the opening solo in the band's hit song Stairway to Heaven was lifted from the instrumental track of the late guitarist Randy California. This is just the latest in a wave of suits alleging popular hit tunes from artists like Robin Thicke and Avril Lavigne were actually ripped off from other songwriters. Adam Thompson is a criminal and civil attorney here to talk about what is going on in the music industry and why we are now seeing these lawsuits come to light. Stairway to Heaven is 43 or something years old, but since it came out, there have been accusations that it was plagiarized. First, talk us about what this case is regarding Led Zeppelin.
Okay, the case with Zepp, everyone says, get the lead out, and it's like you all hear that expression. This is probably more a thing where they say, get the spirit out, because supposedly a band that traveled with Zeppelin named Spirit wrote a song called Taurus that the whole famous intro to Stairway to Heaven that everybody's always air guitaring and everything else was completely lifted from this song. And you don't hear about a lot of these cases. It's been going on for, back to the 1800s, these kind of situations. But on the books, there's only probably like 100 cases in this area of music plagiarism, because most of the time the artists want to resolve it and get taken care of.
Without because there's nothing worse than having your creativity attacked.
You think Led Zeppelin wants it to be known that another band wrote one of their greatest songs,
one of the greatest songs of all time?
Of course.
What is the legal standard? Does there have to be intent here? What is the standard?
It's very difficult. First of all, you almost have to get the artist to admit that they committed some act of plagiarism. They have to say that they knew that song existed out there. And whether it's copywritten or not, the rules are so different now. They have to show that they knew the song was out there and that they took a substantial portion of that song.
Access to it.
That's right.
So it's not like they had heard it and accidentally copied it.
Right.
That might not work.
That won't work. When these kind of cases come, they're basically showing, hey, listen, you knew about this song, you heard the song, you must have loved it, and then you took either substantial portions of the music, sometimes the lyrics, and sometimes even both.
So this case is in Pennsylvania, which seems a little strange to begin with, right? Because the band that they're accused of ripping off was in California,
right?
And it's ending up in Pennsylvania. Some what we would call forum shopping. Do you think in the
well,
law?
Absolutely. If you're a songwriter, first of all, if you're going to forum shop, you want to go to Nashville. That's the songwriting capital of the world. And most musical groups are usually out of California, so you can go there. The fact that it's in Pennsylvania tends to suggest that the person bringing the lawsuit must have some connections or ties to that state, and I believe he is a Pennsylvania lawyer.
Okay, so what is going on now in the entire industry as a whole that we're starting to see more and more of these cases sort of pop up?
Well, the big change really came when sampling got big, when artists started to sample, and that's like pulling a riff out of a song.
Well, the famous case is the NAA case and Roy Orbison, I believe, and Roy Orbison lost that case.
He did.
He accused NAA because they literally sampled what Orbison.
So the whole question then comes down to how much of a song can you use, what's permissible.
What's parody, what's making fun of.
Exactly. And most artists now, to play it safe, because all the record labels are at war, and we're talking big money, it always comes down to the money, is they try to get pre-approval from the artist. And, in the MC Hammer song, he riffed it almost the exact thing from Rick James. Clearly, it was a dupe, and he got his permission, paid him royalties. The issue is when you don't pay the royalties or give the credit.
Is this because the industry is just under assault in general, that this entire business has changed? There are no more albums coming out. It's all singles. It's all on iTunes.
It's a whole different world now in the music industry. You nailed it on the head, because you don't see like the old days, LP albums coming out, different kind of things with releases. Now there's so much access to this music. You just go on the internet. Illegal downloads is a whole other problem with this. So then now you have artists worried about protecting their intellectual property, what they create, and then once it's created and actually gets out there to make the money, then it's being lifted illegally through piracy over the internet.
About 30 seconds left. Give us your thoughts on where the Led Zeppelin case is going to go.
It's 40 years old. It's such an iconic song. I think they're going to do everything to preserve the song to Led Zeppelin. I think the people behind Zeppelin are going to work out an out-of-court settlement. They don't want to even risk this goes in front of a judge or a jury. Settlement, almost 100%.
Adam Thompson, thank you so much. We'll have you back on as the case unfolds.
Always a pleasure, Andrew.
Tomorrow on the Rise Exchange, the Federal Reserve kicks off its two-day policy meeting, followed by a news conference, of course, by Fed Chair Janet Yellen. We will have all of the latest developments. Let's take a look once again at how the markets did. The Dow finishing up the day 12. The big story of the day, of course, was oil. For a brief time today, it dropped below $80 a barrel. Then some buyers came in and propped it back up. But that's the magic number, we're told, $80 a barrel, to see if Saudi Arabia and OPEC may start trying to defend that number. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Thanks for watching the Rise Exchange. See you tomorrow.